Hello and good morning. Welcome to the channel. Today, this is an update from what I did about a year ago about we pay more for slower internet. People in the U.S. pay more for slower internet than our European, Canadian, and Asian counterparts, according to the Open Technology Institute. We pay a lot more for slower internet than everybody else does. So let's see what the Open Technology Institute says. And this is the reason why, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go with this.
The internet has become a crucial part of everyday life, but often it can feel like your connection is too slow and too expensive.
I've seen it dip to about 1 megabit per second, and that usually happens right around the time I have to download a huge file for work.
Open Technology Institute's research confirms the frustration.
People in the U.S. pay more for slower internet than people abroad. So for many consumers, the cost of getting online right now is simply too high and also too complicated.
And there are a lot of stakeholders adding to the confusion.
It's not like you just connect a wire to your house and you have magic access to the cloud. It takes a lot of infrastructure and wires and cables and networks to get data from your house to the rest of the internet.
Our Wi-Fi is run through the company that owns this apartment. We don't get to see what our Wi-Fi speed is supposed to run at or alter our plan at all.
Really have no idea how pricing for internet service works in this country. We don't really know what will show up on our bill at the end of the month, given the kinds of fees that companies can lobby on us.
At the same time, there are still Americans who lack access to affordable, reliable broadband.
One of the striking differences that's persisted over time is that people in the suburbs are much more likely to have internet access and broadband access than rural residents.
Lawmakers are trying to address the issue. For a long time, infrastructure policy didn't include internet access, but new legislation shows that perspective is shifting. The U.S. Senate passed the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act in August 2021, which includes $65 billion to expand high-speed internet access. But the House of Representatives has yet to vote on the bill. And even if there is change coming from Washington, it'll take a long time for that to reach our computers and routers. Here's why so many Americans lack access to high-speed internet, why those who can get it are paying more for slower speeds, and in some ways policymakers can fix it. The cost of high-speed internet in the U.S. is difficult to measure.
The government does collect some cost data, but it's incomplete. It's not perfect. The government also tries to collect access data. That is also incomplete. I think the FCC has been under a lot of pressure to get this right. And I think that there are some good, smart people at the agency working on this, but we don't have it yet.
Some researchers are working to fill the gap in the data. The Open Technology Institute, or OTI, has been studying the price and speed of internet services advertised within the United States as well as abroad.
We found that the current average advertised monthly cost of internet in the United States is $68.38, so almost $70, which is higher than the average price of internet for all of North America, Europe, and Asia. And we also found that the higher costs don't necessarily translate to faster internet. People in the US pay more for slower internet than people abroad. So for many consumers, the cost of getting online right now is simply too high and also too complicated.
One thing that's difficult about comparing prices in the United States is that different geographic regions have very different cost structures. Right? It can be very different to deploy broadband in downtown Los Angeles as it is in Montana.
Actual internet speeds are also difficult to pin down, and they sometimes don't match advertised speeds.
There is a system in place right now where companies self-report the speeds that they offer, but oftentimes those speeds that they report differ from the speeds that consumers actually experience.
Another study out of Berkeley Law also found inconsistencies when it came to internet speeds.
In one town in Minnesota, one side of the street, you pay $50 a month, and your download speed is 60 megabits per second. On the other side of the street, you pay the same price, $50 a month. Your download speed is 3 megabits per second. That's not enough to stream live TV on Hulu. And so what we find is that competition plays a big role in improving consumers' broadband experience.
Any number of folks we talk to say that they've hunted around. They've looked for vendors, they've looked for opportunities to get low-cost access, and some of them have just given up in frustration because they don't feel like it's available to them.
Our research has consistently shown prices for internet service remain high. The federal government should be the one collecting this data from companies. Like, how does the price change? How does this quality change year after year?
Increasing availability to high-speed internet can lead to economic growth, according to an April 2021 report from Deloitte. It found that a 10 percentage point increase in broadband access could have resulted in more than 875,000 additional U.S. jobs in 2014, as well as $186 billion more in economic output in 2019. The report also found that higher speed internet would likely lead to, quote, noticeable improvements in job growth.
When we ask Americans about the advantages of broadband, what is so clear from broadband users is that they think that broadband makes them better citizens, makes them better workers, makes them better consumers, makes them better political and civic actors, makes them better news consumers. And they kind of worry about the people who don't have access to broadband, that they aren't necessarily full participants in all of the dimensions of society.
A 2016 study by the Council of Economic Advisors also found that improving access to broadband leads to economic gains, such as improving labor market outcomes for subscribers, increasing economic growth, providing access to better healthcare, and enhancing civic participation.
Some of the striking things that happened during the pandemic, though, was that as many school children went to remote learning, we heard from a lot of low-income families that their kids were struggling because they didn't have high-speed connections at home. They had to do homework on a cell phone. They often had to go outside the house to a local spot to get access to Wi-Fi. So almost half of the low-income families said that they were struggling with at least one of those issues related to the homework gap during the pandemic.
Stanford University's Policy Analysis for California Education has documented how student learning has declined during the pandemic, especially among younger children. Its research has also found that low-income students were substantially more likely to fall behind than higher-income students.
If someone is still in junior high or elementary school, you disrupt his or her education, you're never going to really make up for that. And then the other thing is graduates who enter a bad labor market. We actually know about that from a number of studies, suffer permanent damage to their career prospects.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is an update from the last time I put this on from CNBC about a year and a half ago. So we hope that you enjoyed that update for about slow internet service. So let me know in the comment section of the channel how your internet service is operating and the megabits per second and all that. Did you see the one, ladies and gentlemen, where the little graphic they showed that one set of internet across the street is the same price as the other side of the street, but 2 different megabits per second? One is 50 megabits and one is 3 megabits. Can you believe that? All right. Well, we thank you for watching. We thank you for being here. And have a great day. And we'll talk to you again soon. Take care. Bye.